What if I told you the person you're most attracted to was never a random choice? Not your type, not your preference, but something your brain decided long before you understood love. There's a hidden trigger, one that makes foreign faces feel more exciting, more intense, almost addictive. And the strange part? Most people think it's love, but it's actually something far more powerful. We live in a time when a person in New York can fall deeply in love with someone in Novosibirsk, when a man in Brazil sends a message to a woman in St. Petersburg at 2 a.m., when borders dissolve through a screen and the unfamiliar suddenly becomes irresistible. But why? Why do people seek romantic partners from entirely different cultures? Is it just novelty, a social media trend, or is something far deeper going on inside the human mind? In this video, we're going to take you into the psychology of cross-cultural attraction and use one of the most fascinating case studies the modern dating world has to offer: the global curiosity surrounding Russian women. By the end, you'll understand why curiosity isn't just a mood, it's a mating strategy, and it may be reshaping love as we know it. Let's start with the science, because this is where most people get it wrong. Curiosity is not simply wanting to know something. Psychologically, it's a state of motivated tension, a gap between what you know and what you want to know. And when that gap opens up, your brain releases dopamine, the same chemical behind desire, excitement, and reward-seeking behavior. In 2009, neuroscientist Matthias Gruber at UC Davis showed that curious states don't just make people pay attention. They make the brain more receptive, more open, and more likely to form lasting memories. When you're genuinely curious about someone, you don't just notice them, you remember them, you seek them, you return to them. Now, here's what makes this relevant to dating. The same mechanism that makes you binge a documentary series is the same mechanism that draws you toward a person you don't fully understand. The unknown is magnetic. And in international dating, the unknown is built into every interaction. There's a term in psychology called optimal distinctiveness theory. It says humans crave a balance between belonging and being different. We want to fit in, but we also want to stand out. We want the familiar, but we also hunger for the exotic. When someone comes from a different culture, they carry a completely different set of values, communication styles, aesthetics, and worldviews. To the curious mind, this is not a barrier. It's a treasure chest. Every conversation becomes a discovery. Every habit they reveal, every phrase they use, every way they approach life, it all feeds the curiosity loop. And as long as curiosity is being fed, attraction grows. This is why cross-cultural couples often describe their relationships as electric or alive, in ways that feel different from relationships within the same cultural group. It's not luck, it's neuroscience. But if curiosity is the engine, what is the spark that sets it off? That's where our case study becomes very revealing. For decades, Russian women have occupied a unique space in the global imagination. And we're not talking about stereotypes. We're talking about a measurable, documented pattern of international romantic interest that spans continents, income levels, and cultural backgrounds. Men from Western Europe, the United States, Latin America, and Southeast Asia have consistently expressed strong cross-cultural attraction to Russian women. But what drives it? When researchers and dating platforms analyze the data, several curiosity triggers emerge. First, perceived contrast. Russian women are widely described as combining two qualities that seem contradictory to outsiders: intense femininity and fierce intellectual independence. That contradiction is deeply curious to many Western men raised in different social norms. Second, cultural mystique. Russia's history, language, and social traditions are genuinely unfamiliar to most of the world. There is a richness, literature, philosophy, a particular emotional depth that outsiders sense but can't easily decode. That sense of depth creates a powerful curiosity gap. Third, the communication dynamic. Many men report that Russian women communicate differently, more directly in some ways, more reserved in others. This unpredictability keeps the curiosity loop open. You think you understand them, then something surprises you, and that surprise is intoxicating. But here's where the story gets even more interesting, because curiosity doesn't flow in one direction. Most people assume that in international dating, one side is doing the seeking and the other is simply being discovered. But that's not what the data shows. Russian women, particularly those with higher education and global exposure, report equally strong curiosity-driven attraction toward foreign partners, not because their own culture lacks depth, but because cross-cultural connection offers something their local social environment cannot: a mirror, a completely different lens through which to see themselves. When you're around someone raised in a completely different world, you're forced to explain things about yourself you've never had to articulate: your values, your humor, your family traditions. And in explaining yourself to a genuinely curious partner, you begin to understand yourself more deeply. Curiosity, it turns out, is not just a tool for attraction. It is a vehicle for self-discovery. And the couples who sustain international relationships long-term are almost always those where curiosity remains mutual, where both people remain genuinely interested in the other's inner world. That insight leads us to something most dating content completely ignores. Not all cross-cultural attraction is curiosity-driven, and this is critical to understand. There's a form of international dating behavior that looks like curiosity, but is actually fantasy. The person isn't curious about the individual. They're attracted to an idea, a projection, a character they've assembled from movies, travel brochures, or online content. Genuine curiosity asks questions. It listens. It's comfortable with complexity and contradiction. It grows when it encounters depth. Fantasy does the opposite. It flattens. It gets uncomfortable when the real person doesn't match the mental image. It fades when reality arrives. The difference matters for both sides. And this is one of the most important things anyone pursuing an international relationship needs to understand. Real curiosity is sustainable. Fantasy is not. The most successful international couples, the ones who build lives across cultures, are people who entered with curiosity and stayed because the discovery never stopped. Here is the deepest truth this topic reveals, and it applies far beyond Russian women, far beyond dating, far beyond romance. Curiosity is a form of respect. When you are genuinely curious about another person, when you want to understand their world, their history, their way of experiencing life, you are treating them as someone worth knowing. Not as an object, not as a symbol, as a human being with depth. And the fascinating thing is, humans can feel this. We are wired to sense when someone is genuinely curious about us versus when they're going through the motions. It's in the quality of the questions, the patience in the listening, the way they return to conversations days later. Cross-cultural attraction, at its best, is humanity choosing depth over convenience. It is people deciding that the richness of discovering another world is worth the friction of the journey. That's not just romantic. That's one of the most profound things human beings do. Curiosity doesn't need a passport, but it might get you closer to the right person than any dating algorithm ever could. If you found this video genuinely interesting, and if it changed the way you think about attraction, culture, or what you're actually looking for, drop a comment below. Tell us, has curiosity ever drawn you towards someone completely different from you? We read every single response. If you want to go deeper into the psychology of attraction and human connection, there are more videos waiting for you on this channel. Hit subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. And like this video if the insight was worth your time. The most interesting people in your life are probably the ones who surprised you. Stay curious.